73-year-old Emily Gilbert was suffering from Alzheimer's disease and osteoporosis. Her husband of 51 years shot her to death. Their daughter called it the ultimate act of love. Roswell Gilbert was convicted of murder. 3-year-old Joey Griffith was irreversibly brain dead. Her father ended her life with 2 bullets. He's been charged with first-degree murder. Good morning, I'm Charlie Rose in Washington. Welcome to the CBS News Nightwatch. This morning, a night match debate on mercy killing. Here's our resolution. Resolved, mercy killing is the ultimate act of kindness, relieving the pain of the terminally ill. The law should allow for a mercy defense. Arguing in favor of the resolution, Derek Humphrey, Executive Director of the Hemlock Society.
In these times when we are seeing so many dangerous side effects of modern medical technology, it ought to be everyone's right to get help with their dying from their doctor. As to mercy killers, the law should be changed to permit a plea of mercy and compassion in their defense.
Arguing against the resolution, James Bopp, General Counsel of the National Right to Life Committee.
Mercy killing favors death for the elderly, the sick, and the disabled. A just society seeks to relieve the burdens of those who are suffering, not to eliminate those who are suffering burdens.
Our debaters will be back in just a few moments, and a little later we'll give members of our studio audience a chance to have their say. First, we begin with a look at the latest news. For that, let's go to the CBS Newsroom here in Washington.
Good morning. I'm Sam Ford. A delegation of church leaders is scheduled to meet with South Africa's President Peter Botha today, but the nation's best-known church leader will not be among them. Bishop Desmond Tutu, who tried to meet with Botha last month and was turned down, said he will not be joining the delegation today, although he said he would meet Botha one-on-one to urge reforms. Tutu has said without reform, there will be catastrophe.
I'm scared. I still believe we're going to be free. But I'm fearful that we are going to get there, barring this miracle, through a bloodbath.
U.S. National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane said Sunday South Africa is looking into the abyss of massive violence. He urged black leaders to press the South African government for specific reforms in negotiations. There was at least one more death Sunday connected with the recent unrest. Pope John Paul II issued one of his strongest attacks yet against apartheid Sunday. Addressing a United Nations group in Kenya, he condemned the segregation policy as evil. The pontiff also celebrated Mass in the capital of Nairobi before an audience estimated at 1 million. John Paul winds up his 12-day African trip today with a brief stop in Morocco. The crash site of a Japanese jumbo jet has yielded grim evidence that the passengers were aware of impending disaster. Notes on a pocket calendar and an air disposal bag were written by at least 2 of the 520 victims saying goodbye to their loved ones. The plane went down about 30 minutes after the pilot reported control problems. More than 3,200 Air Canada flight attendants went on strike at midnight Sunday. A spokesman for the government-owned airline said all scheduled flights will take off as planned. Air Canada has trained a replacement staff to fill in for the striking attendants. And even though their new contract is not yet ratified, some 20,000 car haulers are expected back on the job today. They've been on strike for nearly 3 weeks. The result has been traffic jams at import piers and auto factories. The haulers will now vote on the proposed pact by mail ballot.
There's a style in your life no one could ever deny. You're on your way, moving up. You were always the one who's eager to try. You're on your way to the top, and along the way you've always known just who you are. Where you're going, you've always known it. Where you're going, it's Michelob.
Where you're going, it's exceptionally smooth Michelob.
Where you're going, it's Michelob. Where you work and play, you've got it going your way. You love to share the way you feel. Michelob. Where you're going, you've always known it. Where you're going, it's Michelob. Where you're going, it's Michelob.
New Coors
Crazy Glue Gel, strong enough to hold this man suspended in midair.
Crazy Glue Gel has extra strength. It's extra thick and it's easy to use. Crazy Glue Gel has extra strength on wood and soft leather and instantly bonds a plastic knob, a rubber boot, model planes, and model trains.
New extra strength Crazy Glue Gel. It's extra thick with extra strength and it's easy to use. You'll love Crazy Glue Gel.
Hope you like sugar, because this box contains not 1, not 2, but 6 added teaspoons. This has 10, and this 18. And spoon-size shredded wheat, none. When you shred the wheat for better toasting, it tastes great naturally. So it goes against our grain to add sugar, or even salt. Nabisco shredded wheat, 0 added sugar or salt, 100% whole wheat.
Nabisco.
In recent months, we've seen the debate over mercy killings grow more heated. There is little middle ground on the issue of who has control over life and death. What should society do with its terminally ill? Medical science has evolved to the point where seriously ill people often can be kept alive for years, but it can be a life filled with suffering and pain. And some families have found that the only answer is mercy killing.
She said it out loud to a lot of people in the building, too. I want to die. I can't stand this anymore. She said that all over the place, more than they would tell me about.
It's illegal in every state, but the number of cases still appears to be growing. Supporters argue that there's no better way to handle cases where illness has made life intolerable. But opponents say it's not a decision that should be handled by an emotionally stunned person who may have lost his or her objectivity. So-called right-to-die laws have been passed in 35 states and the District of Columbia. The statutes allow for what are being called living wills. A person can request that extraordinary support systems not be used to prolong life in a terminal illness. The number of Americans who have signed these documents is estimated to be in the millions. But the law still offers no solution for millions of other terminally ill patients. People still shoot and kill loved ones in the name of mercy. And the courts don't seem to be hesitating to call it murder. Should the law be more lenient towards mercy killing? Here's our night match resolution again. Resolved, mercy killing is the ultimate act of kindness, relieving the pain of the terminally ill. The law should allow for a mercy defense. Supporting that resolution is Derek Humphrey, Executive Director of the Hemlock Society. Mr. Humphrey assisted his own wife to commit suicide near the end of a terminal illness several years ago in England. Opposing the resolution is James Bopp, General Counsel of the National Right to Life Committee. Mr. Humphrey, your opening statement, please.
Yes, you see, the problem here is that Anglo-American law has never permitted anybody to say, I killed this person out of love and compassion and mercy. Many other European nations do permit this defense, and many legal thinkers have argued that in a caring society, a mercy killer ought to be able to at least offer his compassionate reasons. But in mercy killing cases we've seen recently in America, and the law has been applied, I don't argue that, whenever the accused or his counsel has said, there was a reason I did this, it was out of common humanity, the judge and the DA has jumped in and said, you cannot say that. That is not a defense. Members of the jury ignore it. This, I think, is inhumane because, as we saw in that recent case, the gentleman on the tape just now, Mr. Gilbert, he got a sentence of 25 years, and I noticed the Hillside Strangler in Los Angeles for killing 13 people, young, lovely young women, also got 25 years. We need a new body of law and a new way to plead for these mercy killers. They should be accountable. It is not right to go around and shoot your loved ones, but they must be accountable separately and with a different degree of mercy.
Mr. Bopp, your opening statement, please.
The question before us today is how will our society deal with the elderly, the sick, and the disabled? Those who are in favor of mercy killing believe that they are better off dead. They are better, and it's not just those who are terminally ill and in pain. They believe that people are better off dead if they are dependent and disabled, if they are sick and infirm. They believe that people are better off dead if they want to be dead, whether they are adults or they are children. And it's not just, and pain control is not the issue. For modern medical practice, through a variety of methods and drugs and devices, is able to control pain in nearly all circumstances. The question is, what is the humane way in which we will deal with those who require our compassion and who are dependent upon us? There is a humane alternative to the terminally ill, and that is the hospice movement that concentrates on increasing the quality of life of those who are terminally ill and to treat their symptoms when there is no longer cure available. What those who are in favor of mercy killing advocate, however, is the hastening of the death of those who they believe their life is not worth living. They resolve the issue of illness in favor of death, not in favor of life. Mercy killing would also create an impossible legal standard. Our current law does not recognize motive as a defense in any crime. We punish an act, killing, with an intent, the natural and intended consequences of the act. We deceive even ourselves about our motives, and how are we to be able to determine ex post facto the motives of others? Some of the worst things that have happened historically have happened because of good motives but leading to bad acts. The goals of those in favor of mercy killing goes beyond the ill, those who are in pain, or even adults. It goes beyond decisions made by patients themselves to decisions made by others, and even against their will. We should help shoulder the burden, not kill those who have a difficult burden to bear.
Net rebuttal, Mr. Humphrey.
Well, there is no believer in euthanasia who would want to enforce euthanasia. When the legislation comes, as it surely will, we would want provisions in it that a person who didn't want euthanasia could very firmly elect not to have it. That should be everybody's right. All we are asking for is that those who can sit comfortably with euthanasia, with helping to die, should be able to get it. And I think in these modern times, and in this country above all, a country of basic freedoms, surely the ultimate civil liberty is to have your own right to die.
Rebuttal, Mr. Bott.
Unfortunately, that is not true. At the Hemlock Society conference this year held in California, a speaker talked about the ultimate goal of the mercy killing movement, and that was to create, quote, special judicial forms, a tribunal on suicide and assisted suicide. Ultimately, said this speaker at the Hemlock Society conference, ultimately the state must make the decision as to what the person may want. Family members should have no part in the decision. It ultimately becomes, because even those who are relatively competent with terminal illnesses, it ultimately becomes a situation in which they are debilitated and unable to make decisions for themselves. The euthanasists want to make the decision for them and the decision for death.
Arisha has been joined. When we come back, more from our debaters, and later in the broadcast we'll hear from our studio audience. Stay with us as Night Match continues.
That's Jenny. But that's not Jenny's dad. If she gets into that car, you may be looking at Jenny for the last time. I'm McGruff, the crime dog. Let me show you something. See that playground? A lot of kids there. Every day in this country, 60 kids disappear. Some run away, but a lot are kidnapped by strangers or even by people they know. Almost 20,000 kids a year. 20,000 kids, one kid at a time. Maybe your kid, on your street, just like Jenny. You know, your kids can learn to protect themselves against crime at home, at school, on the street. Hey, nice going, Jenny. She's gonna tell her folks about this. And you can write to McGruff. Learn how to keep your family and your community safe and help take a bite out of crime.
I make your fix and stay straight. But what I also lay on you is that extra weight. I'm Mr. Salt, and I retain water. If you got high blood pressure, then I'm one guy you shouldn't alter.
Blubber and fat flaps my trade. Let Mr. Wade elucidate. Get wise, get down and exercise. One way to lay high blood pressure low is to make me go.
I'm Miss Pills, and I'm here to say, if you don't take me every day, you'll have the devil to pay. 'Cause high blood pressure goes up when I'm not around. But baby, as long as we're together, we'll keep that pressure down.
I've got high blood pressure. That is true. So I do what my doctor tells me to. I knock out the salt, I dump the weight, I take my pills, and you know what? I feel great.
'Cause high blood pressure goes up when I'm not around.
But baby, as long as we're together, we'll keep that pressure down.
New studies show that pot damages your lungs a lot more than you think, especially if you're still growing.
You can't fly if you're high.
The American Lung Association.
I thought about it in the back of my mind, but I just didn't give a damn what happened to me. I didn't know what the law was. I hadn't looked it up. A mandatory sentence was used to me. I just didn't care. I was in a desperate situation. No matter what happened to me, I could take care of it. I could handle it. But the suffering my wife was going through, and worse if I didn't do it, I just couldn't stand that.
The man you just saw is Roswell Gilbert, convicted of murdering his ailing wife. We have as a special guest in our audience his daughter, Martha Gilbert Moran. You have stood by your father.
Yes, sir, I have.
Who, in traditional legal parlance, murdered your mother.
Well, I don't consider it murder. I consider it that he put my mother out of her misery.
No qualms about it at all? No reservations, no...
Well, I feel...
Considering the circumstances?
No, I feel that my father had reached a state where he was so desperate and could no longer watch my mother deteriorate the way she was going, that he just felt that he had to end her life. And I do support what he did. I'm not saying that I think that it was the complete answer. I wish he had found an alternate answer. But after the act was done, I sincerely believe he did the right thing.
Was there an alternate answer?
I think the alternate answers that were brought up were the fact, put mother in a nursing home, get nurses around the clock. I think Daddy felt that only he could take care of my mother. She was very attached to him, which is a symptom of Alzheimer's. She could only be with my father constantly. And I think that he felt that if he had put mother in a nursing home, that he could not be with her 24 hours a day. And she had reached a point where she would have been tied to a bed, just like an animal, and he couldn't bear to see that.
I'm not sure this is a fair question, but it is on many people's minds. Right. What would she have wanted him to do?
Oh, I feel sincerely that if my mother were here today and you asked her the same question, she would bless Daddy for what he did, because 20 minutes before Mother died, she said, "Please, I can't bear this pain anymore. Won't somebody help me? I want to die." And I think that's what set Daddy to do what he did.
Did you have any idea he would do it?
No, I had absolutely no idea. I live in Baltimore. This happened in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
I understand the distance,
right.
But he's your father.
No, I had no idea that Daddy was going to do anything like this.
Imagine yourself in the circumstances, which may be the question you thought I was going to ask. Could you have done it?
God, that's an awful hard decision. I can't answer that. I think each individual has to look at their own circumstances. Whether I would want my husband to do the same thing to me is, I think, yes. If I was really that bad and I knew that it was the only way was downhill in misery, I think I would be pleased that my husband did it for me. But that takes a lot of guts.
You listen to Mr. Bob. What do you say to him who genuinely and out of conviction
Well,
and careful consideration believes
all right, there's one thing I
it's
want to
murder?
ask him is that, do you feel, sir, in your own heart, regardless of the moral attitude you feel towards what my father did, do you feel that my father deserved a 25-year jail sentence without any chance of parole based on the treatment that he had that Charles Manson or another killer, mass killer, would have?
Mr. Bob, you want to answer that at this point?
The laws of the state of Florida, the judge that attended the trial listened to all the witnesses and heard all of the other evidence that occurred in that case. And the jury that listened to all of that convicted your father of murdering your mother. I can sympathize with your feeling that you need to defend your father, for your mother is gone. Only your father's here. I can sympathize with that, and I can also sympathize with the burden that your father was carrying.
Can you agree that the sentence was too severe?
That's what I want to know. You haven't
Not
answered
for
my
first-degree
question.
murder, I do not.
And under these circumstances, the sentence was not too severe.
First-degree murder was the appropriate crime that was committed.
We'll come back. What would you expect to be? What should the law have said to you?
Well, I think if Dad had been convicted of manslaughter, therefore the judge would have had much more flexibility in the sentencing. I certainly think that the state would have had to take its due. I could have lived with a manslaughter conviction.
Okay. We'll come back to this discussion in just a minute with Martha Moran, Mr. Humphrey, Mr. Bob, studio audience. Night Watch continues. Stay with us. Stay with me 1 second. Come back. I'll come back.
If you've been smart enough to have waited for a great value in a famous brand business and personal computer, Urban General has what you've been waiting for. Step into the computer age with the Royal Alphatronic PC. Royal, known for quality business equipment for over 80 years, brings you a complete system to get you started in the world of computing. Check these features. Royal Alphatronic PC, a 320K single disk drive, CPM operating system, 64K memory, and an easy-to-read amber monitor. Sounds good, doesn't it? Well, it's even better because when you order now, this package includes software from Peachtree Software Incorporated. You get Peach Text, a powerful word processing program, and Peach Calc, a powerful tool for home records management and financial planning. These excellent software programs are fully documented for easy learning. With your credit card order, you get a 15-day free home trial and Royal's toll-free number to help set up your system. The Royal Alphatronic PC comes with a 320K single disk drive, CPM operating system, 64K memory, an easy-to-read amber monitor, and the Peachtree software. So what would you expect to pay for the entire package? Royal's original retail price was $1,448. Now, all this can be yours for just $498. You save $950. Only 3,500 units will be sold nationwide at this incredible low price, and Urban General guarantees this to be the lowest price in America or will refund the difference. Here's how to order.
To qualify for a free 15-day home trial, use your credit card and order now. Call 1-800-241-2000 or send check or money order for $498 plus $15 shipping and handling to Royal PC. P.O. Box 3500, Department K, West Caldwell, New Jersey 07006.
Later this morning on Night Watch, Victor Borge will be here. He's a musician, a comedian, and he's been knighted by all 5 Scandinavian countries. Now at 76, he's been performing worldwide for 40 years.
So what she thinks of these various
And New Jersey Governor Tom Kean will talk about his new post as chairman of a commission dedicated to developing a national education policy.
We hope to be about this. Yes, sir.
My question's for Mr. Humphrey. How do you and your fellow Hemlock Society members distinguish between those people who say they want to die and really mean it, and those who say they want to die and don't really mean it?
Good question.
I think it's a question of persistency, consistency. Our manifesto has always said that euthanasia should be only for those who have constantly asked for help in dying and have believed in this, demonstrated with a living will or membership of such a group as ours, that they believe this. No, it's something that has to be shown consistently.
And over a period of time?
Yes.
Does that satisfy you?
Not really.
Do you think there should be a distinction, and how would you make that distinction?
Well, first of all, I don't think there should be a distinction.
Okay.
Therefore, the rest of the question becomes moot. But
Mr. Bob, what do you think?
Well, the Roswell Gilbert case is a classic example of the killing of an individual not for that individual's alleged good, but for the alleged good of someone else, the father. The husband had taken Mrs. Gilbert from the hospital where she was receiving pain medication, and she was receiving no pain medication for several days, where he had 3 sleepless nights. And it was at that point, according to Mr. Humphrey, that he admits that it was then he began to think about taking her life.
Okay, Ms. Moran is here, so...
Well, I will deny what you just said, sir. You said my mother was not on pain medication. My mother was on Percodan. My mother had her 4th Percodan by 2 o'clock in the afternoon the day she died. I consider that pretty heavy medication.
Mr. Humphrey says differently in the Hemlock Quarterly, where he published an article concerning this case. He said that while she was hospitalized and the doctor was attempted to control the pain, she was having difficulty. She would sleep during the night, but difficulty during the day and becoming unmanageable.
Ms. Moran is not arguing with the source, but with the fact.
I'm not discussing what Mr. Humphrey said. I'm telling you what I know is a fact, that my mother was taking Percodan and also was building up an immunity to Percodan. Therefore, the Percodans were no longer working.
Well, there are many other, well, it's 2 points. Number one is Mr. Humphrey.
Medication, sir.
Mr. Humphrey was also at the trial, ma'am. I was not.
I don't refer to the Percodan.
I am reviewing the article that he published concerning this case. Secondly there are many, many pain control medicines. The modern techniques for pain control have become very good. And the problem that she had
Tell that to a lot of people dying of terminal cancer these days.
Well, they die, but their pain can be controlled. But their pain can be controlled.
No, sir, that is a fallacy.
That is not a fallacy.
Yes, it is.
Modern techniques of intravenous morphine, according to the most modern studies, have shown that in almost every instance, pain can be controlled to a satisfactory level. Well, and the problem that you have is not with your mother, or that your mother should die. She should not have been terminated. The doctor should have been terminated, because he was not able to do what he should have been able to do in these circumstances.
You're suggesting my mother's doctor should have been terminated? I don't even want to discuss it with you.
Discharged, and you know what I meant.
All right, we will...
I should have a chance to rebut. I made
Humphrey?
no reference to Percodan in my article. It didn't happen to come up in what I was saying. And I didn't say she was taken from the hospital. The medical evidence was that she was discharged from the hospital as unmanageable. She was so obstreperous and awkward that the doctor gave evidence in the court that she had to leave. They couldn't manage her. And he took her home.
You said when Mr. Gilbert realized that formal medical care was hopeless, he took her home.
Yes.
Although he never said so, it must have been the final blow.
Yeah.
He was by then unnerved and exhausted. And then he went through 3 sleepless nights, and then he decided to kill his wife.
We will come back to this and other points. Night Match continues. Stay with us as we talk about mercy killing.
Good morning, I'm Sam Ford with the news. Unfavorable reaction to South African President Peter Botta's speech 4 days ago continued Sunday. Spokesmen from Bishop Desmond Tutu to President Reagan's National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane were predicting massive violence in South Africa unless the white minority government begins to reform. McFarlane Sunday appealed to black leaders in South Africa, urging them to negotiate despite the whites' hardline attitude.
As frustrated as the opposition may be, it is probably a better alternative to sit down and take whatever time, and it shouldn't be a lot of time, to find out is the government serious here or not.
McFarlane denied a report in Sunday's New York Times that some administration officials favor the overthrow of Nicaragua's leftist government. McFarlane called that report absolute nonsense, saying there are a lot of people at the White House putting out rhetoric who, in his words, don't have the competence to do so. U.S. envoy Richard Murphy ended a 6-day trip to the Middle East Sunday in which he shuttled to Jordan, Israel, and Egypt. The purpose was to determine the status of possible peace talks between the Arabs and Israelis in settling the Palestinian issue. Murphy has said the U.S. is willing to meet with a Jordanian-Palestinian delegation if that contributes to a solution. 6 civilians became the latest victims Sunday of fighting between Christian and Muslim militias. That came as the death toll rose to 55 from Saturday's car bomb explosion outside a crowded supermarket in Christian East Beirut. One prominent Christian has blamed Muslim leaders Nabi Berri and Walid Jumblat for the bomb. Christians are vowing that they will get revenge. An Iranian photographer who was held captive in Beirut for 50 days arrived in Paris Sunday after being released Saturday by his captors. The photographer, who worked for a French photo agency, said he convinced the kidnappers he was not a spy. He said they had shaved his head but treated him well. He learned nothing, he said, about 7 Americans being held in Beirut. A sweet smell that stung the nose and eyes. That's how witnesses described the noxious fumes from a Celanese company tank car that leaked for a second straight day. About 400 plant workers nearby were forced to evacuate Sunday in Muncie, Indiana. Officials blame the same leaking rail car for a spill of the same chemical a day earlier, 30 miles away. At Institute, West Virginia Sunday, residents weren't fleeing, they were seething. About 400 people, many on the verge of tears, denounced Union Carbide for 2 chemical leaks that made 142 people sick last week. A Carbide worker at the meeting publicly accused his employer of scrimping on worker training. Mercy killing. Some say the term is contradictory on its face. Others say it could be the ultimate act of love. Charlie Rose and our night match participants continue the debate.
Our night match debate this morning is focusing on the rising number of reported cases of mercy killing. Here's our resolution for those of you just tuning in. Resolved, mercy killing is the ultimate act of kindness, relieving the pain of the terminally ill. The law should allow for mercy defense. Our debaters are Derek Humphrey of the Hemlock Society and James Bopp, General Counsel of the National Right to Life Committee. We have with us also a studio audience of people with comments and questions and opinions about the subject, which has become a significant part of the American conversation. Yes, sir.
My question is for Mr. Bopp. I've been hearing that the pro-life movement has argued a slippery slope argument that in 1973 we saw abortion devalue the unborn child, and we've had 18 million abortions since then. In 1983, in the pediatrics journal, Pete Singer an ethicist offered the notion that a handicapped newborn was less valuable than a healthy dog, pig, cat, or rat. Now in 1985, we hear people like Dr. Joseph Fletcher saying that on mercy killing, the moral issue is whether biological life, when it becomes subhuman, is still valuable enough to preserve at all costs. Some people say that this is a domino effect.
Is there a question?
The question is, do you see this as what people call a slippery slope? And,
Mr. Bopp.
Mercy killing is part of and reflects a greater ethic, and that is the quality of life ethic. That life has no inherent value and only has relative value based upon your functioning level. If you are sick, if you are disabled, if you are dependent, if you are a burden on others, as Mr. Gilbert claims his wife was a burden upon him, then the solution for that burden is not to relieve the burden, to go to the hospice movement in the state of Florida to seek help for your terminally ill wife so that you can have the help at home that you need, not to provide alternatives to abortion or medical care for handicapped newborns, but that death is the option of choice in these circumstances.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to know why people don't believe, like Bishop Sheen believed, that life is worth living. I am a senior citizen, a member of 4 different senior citizen clubs, know thousands of people, known with cancer and Alzheimer's disease. I don't know a single one of them that want to terminate their life.
Let Mr. Humphrey speak to that, perhaps. He can answer that question.
Good. The greatest protection against the abuse of euthanasia is the desire to live, the lust for life. People, I mean, I'm probably the greatest believer in euthanasia around. I love life. I wish to live as long as possible into a healthy old age. I'd like to live until I'm 90. So to call it a pro-death movement is nonsense. It's reality dealing with dying we're addressing.
Yes, I'd like to ask both of you why neither has mentioned the possibility of powers of attorney by which an individual, prior to becoming so ill and incapacitated, can direct not only what decisions ought to be made for him or her, but also appoint a person, a family member or a friend, to make those decisions and carry them out, thus eliminating a lot of the problems you've been discussing tonight.
Both of you speak to that, please.
Good question. The Hemlock Society hands out free powers of attorney documents to people. Yes, it's an excellent way to make another protection against a bad death.
Mr. Bob.
Durable power of attorney gives unlimited power to a third party to terminate the life of another.
No, not to terminate it. You're wrong. You're legally wrong.
Well,
they can talk to the doctor on behalf.
When one shoots another, that is termination. When one administers poison to another,
the power of
that
attorney
is
does not
terminating
give permission to shoot another person. As a lawyer, I'm amazed at you getting you're so off.
Let me get
the power of attorney
question
gives you the right to talk to a doctor and say, on behalf of the comatose person, say, this sort of treatment is more appropriate because this is what my friend thinks.
Mr. Humphrey, it gives an unlimited power to a third party to deny food, water, oxygen, medical treatment to an incompetent
you're
patient.
More on ground now. Yes, you're on sound
and
ground
that is
now.
termination. If you starve somebody to death, if you...
You referred to shooting.
I didn't say shoot, Mr. Humphrey. I said terminate. And I believe, and you admit, that death is preferable in these situations. That is what the result that is sought and desired in these
Preferable
circumstances.
in some situations, yes.
And termination, I did not say shoot. I didn't even say kill. I said terminate. Ending the life
Let me
of
get the
another
questioner
person
back in who
by
raised the point in the
starvation
beginning,
and dehydration.
Mr. Bopp and Mr. Humphrey. Yes.
I would like to clarify this. I am an attorney, and I work with the hospice people, and I work with nursing homes and a number of healthcare providers. And I can guarantee you that a power of attorney gives a third person the possibility of making healthcare decisions for you, but you can write into that power of attorney what your directives are, and you can say either I wish to have no extraordinary treatment, or you can say I wish to be transferred to a hospice, or you can say I wish that everything be done for me. If I am terminally ill, I want to hang on as long as possible. You can write in whatever instructions you want to write in.
And that's
why it's a useful document.
You can write in, just as you can in a living will. It doesn't have to be a durable power of attorney. You can write in instructions in a living will. However, under many states, durable power of attorney, such as in California, authorizes, unless it is amended or stipulated otherwise, allows for unlimited power.
Yes.
Mr. Bopp, are you concerned, as I am, that we're hearing the same arguments for the taking of lives of the elderly and the handicapped as we heard for the unborn, that they're unwanted and therefore we're doing them a great favor? I have a background in nursing and...
Okay, let him answer that question. Go ahead, Mr. Bopp.
I am concerned that our society is looking for, as an option to the problems of sick and disabled persons, that they ought to die, and that ethic has led in the circumstance of abortion to 1.5 million abortions a year. We now have, even with our view against suicide, some 25,000 suicides a year. You can expect that number to increase dramatically if Mr. Humphrey has his way, that it becomes socially acceptable. Society will put pressure on people in favor of death through economic sanctions and other means.
Yes.
In New Jersey, the Supreme Court recently, in their Conroy case, stated that it was possible to dehydrate and starve to death an incompetent elderly nursing home patient who gave no indication that she wanted that, or any future patients. Do you think that it becomes more difficult to protect the vulnerable in the future when when life is only good based on its functional ability to both.
Tell you what, would you hold on the answer to that question? We will remember the question, go to the break and come back so that you both will have time to answer. We'll do that as Night Match continues. Please stay with us.
Special Olympics encourages the mentally handicapped to reach for a goal. All they need is a little help from a friend. Volunteer to help the Special Olympics. It touches all of us.
On a misty morning, when the fog is lifting, the amazing sentries of America the Beautiful rise to meet the day, just as they have done since before there was a land called America. Trees renew themselves, and with care, blossom into a dazzling array of color and shade. Because the trees live, we live better lives. Every time you plant a tree, life gets better and better and better. The trees that are planted and cared for today will create beauty for all those who will follow. Celebrate Arbor Day and plant a tree, a joy forever. For more information, write the National Arbor Day Foundation, Nebraska City, Nebraska.
Yes.
What about the people that are allergic to pain medicines such as Demerol, morphine, and Tawin, and like? Are they supposed to suffer?
No, there are more things than just drugs for relief of pain. There are some surgical procedures. There's also some electronic devices that are used that interrupt the pain stimulus. Fortunately, we have been concentrating on pain control rather than eliminating those in pain, and we are continually developing new drugs and devices that are effective in pain control.
Yes.
I have an elderly aunt who cared for her father for 17 years. He was paralyzed on the left side. Doctors couldn't do anything for him. A short time ago, to me anyway, she had her breast removed. And the doctor told me that she had 6 months to live and was in severe pain. That, sir, was 7 years ago. And if I took your advice, I wouldn't have my aunt with me today. Why should I take your advice, and why should I allow you to make that legal?
Nobody's asking you to. Nobody's suggesting that you kill your aunt. It's not your moral or legal duty. It's your aunt's right to choose what life or death in her mind. Nobody's giving you a manifesto.
But you would assert that.
Well, it's not that easy. As one of the speakers at the Hemlock Society's recent conference said, that there is a fantastic
Let me interrupt, Mr. Bob. Because Mr. Humphrey's here, I would rather ask him what he believes rather than papers from the Hemlock Society.
Well, unfortunately, he's not describing the true
There were right-to-lifers at our
nature.
conference, all sorts of views given at a conference.
Dr. Margaret Batten was on the program.
But let me interrupt. Gentlemen, if you have a question, why don't you just refer it to Mr. Humphrey and vice versa. Therefore, we can find out what each of you believe rather than referring to papers. Go ahead, Mr. Bob.
As one of the speakers at the Hemlock Conference said, there's tremendous economic pressure to reduce health care costs. That is a kind of society pressure that we can expect if mercy killing is legal, to press for euthanasia of the type that Mr. Humphrey is in favor of.
Well, we should specifically legislate to cut that out. This is a very rich country. Hopefully it's a caring country, and we can afford to give appropriate medicine to people who need it. And in euthanasia legislation, it should specifically say nobody's life can be helped to die for a financial reason, for financial shortage.
Well, I would
soon handle that part.
I would hope that that would be the result, but I'm sure you will not be president, and nor will I. And we're talking about an issue of mercy killing and the effect that legalizing mercy killing will have in our society. Will people be able to resist the economic pressures? Will they be able to resist the other pressures that will be brought to bear in a circumstance in which the patient finds it very difficult to make a decision themselves because of their disabled condition?
Yes.
This question is for Mr. Pop. If it costs, Mr. Pop, if it costs $10,000 a day to keep someone alive on a machine, and the family does not have the money to pay for it, who should pay for it? And if it should be the government, why isn't the government responsible for taking that same amount of money and feeding the infants that are starving?
Well, fortunately, we have a variety of methods to pay for health care costs that ranges from federal government to state government to local government to private insurance, and many hospitals provide for free and appropriate care for people that need it. But fortunately, we are a country where we do not have to decide between a person who is terminally ill and a person who is hungry. We are a country in which we can provide for both and should provide for both.
Yes.
We've been speaking mainly about one end of the age spectrum, and I was just wondering if the same rationale can be used at another end of the age spectrum. If a teenage, let's say a mildly deformed teenage boy expresses over and over and over again his desire to die, should I then be allowed to kill that person?
It's a good question, Mr. Humphrey.
No.
Should not.
No, of course not.
Difference is?
Well, that boy must handle his life. You have no right to kill other people. You see, you seem to be suggesting the whole innuendo here that we're going to kill off people like Hitler did. We're talking about self-choice here. Well, carefully defined self-choice. But the last two speakers here said, you know, they implied that, you know, had my remit run, they would have killed these people. That's nonsense. I'm not suggesting any such thing.
Mrs. Gilbert was not competent to make a decision.
I said I didn't defend Mr. Gilbert's action.
And
I plead for understanding.
And there are many incompetents who have not made a decision one way or another about these matters, and the courts have been recognizing, and there are people who are advocating under mercy killing.
Let me come
that third parties be able to make that decision.
Just for clarification, while you don't agree with what Mr. Gilbert did, how do you think the law should respond to his action?
As I've said two or three times on this program, he should be able to plead mercy. His motive for what he did should be taken into consideration, and he should get a lighter sentence.
Okay.
That's my position.
He should be sentenced, though.
Yes, he should be accountable. Right.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I think we should take a look at the context in which we're discussing this issue, other areas of life and death in our society, that people are, say, starving in Ethiopia while grain rots in American silos with the president's support, that Union Carbide can cause so many deaths in India than in our country.
And your question is?
Do all these things weaken our respect for life because we see so much killing around us that then we can't even handle the question of the lives of people right around us?
I don't think there's any question that we have a weakened respect for life that is impacting throughout our country, to all ages and people in various conditions, and throughout the world. Unfortunately, there is grain rotting in the silos in Ethiopia with the Ethiopian government's suffrage. So, unfortunately, we're in an era in which life does not receive the respect that it deserves.
Yes. Well, I think I must have my say too. You can't have that. It's no pleasure for me to say this, but the world has always been full of disasters, wars, slaughters from Genghis Khan, Attila the Hun, the World War II, which killed 39 million people. I mean, there's always been death and disaster in the world, unfortunately.
And it's something that we should not encourage, but we should discourage. We should not say that people are better off dead because they are infirm, but we should affirm the value of their life provide them the help that they need when they are hopeless.
You would defy their individual wish. If it is their wish to die of an intelligent, mature adult, you would say, no, you can't have it.
Mr. Humphrey,
yes or no?
Mr. Humphrey, the surveys have shown and the studies have proved that 95% of the people who express a desire for suicide,
that's suicide.
have mental illnesses of some form or another.
We're not talking about suicide of unhappy, disturbed people. That's not the subject here tonight.
Well,
you quoted a correct statistic, but it has nothing to do with this debate.
We'll take a break there.
The wish for death is suicide.
We'll be right back as Night Match continues, and we do. I promise I'll get to your question.
You want me to sit down or stay here?
No, stay here. Back in a moment. Stay with us.
Be ready in half an hour?
Almost ready. Tonight I'm not rushing. Oh, no.
What's wrong?
I broke a nail.
Oh.
Why tonight?
Lee Nails, a nail mender and lengthener that really works. Brush on Lee Nails. Mend a chipped or torn nail or lengthen all 10. Create longer, stronger, natural-looking nails.
Too bad about your nail.
Not too bad.
You grew a new one.
Almost.
Lee Nails. You'll love them.
These are the amazing Lee press-on nails. They press on in seconds. No glue, no mess. Simply press on Lee Super Stick tabs. Then press on Lee press-on nails. That's all. Easy on, easy off. Use them again and again. They just won't break or split. Polish, and they're nearly impossible to chip. So press on. Lee press-on nails. In natural and glamour lengths and a variety of sizes for a quick, easy fit. Press on.
The unsold airplane seat. Until now, nobody flew in it. The unsold cruise cabin. Until now, nobody sailed in it. But now, with this card as a member of DTI, you can buy unsold travel space and save up to 60% off the regular price. If you can travel on 6 weeks' notice or less, you should call now for free information about this unusual travel club. While everyone else is paying full fare rates for exciting trips to all parts of the world, DTI members pay only a fraction of the regular rate for the same trip and the same guaranteed reservations. You are invited to join the club, so call now for free information about DTI, where the world is on sale every day of the year. Here's the number.
For free information in the mail about DTI membership, call 800-251-4900. The call is free, 800-251-4900.
You're on. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bopp, I would like to ask you, is there an awful lot of difference between what we're moving towards today and what happened in the 1920s and 1930s in Nazi Germany?
Well, there have been various periods historically in which people who are infirm or handicapped or disabled have been, with society's approval, their lives have been terminated, and this has happened
We have raised this question several times, and you've spoken to the issue. We've got about 2 minutes left. Can I just get some people involved? Yes.
Okay. With complex medical technology that they have now, they can extend life for prolong a horrible life and a painful life for so long. It seems so unfair that if someone has requested that their life be terminated and that they not have to face these often degrading, humiliating conditions, that they should be allowed to do that.
So who do you want to respond to that?
Either.
Okay, either one respond to that, because in the end, that's the crux of the matter.
This lady is talking about personal autonomy, an intelligent individual's right to choose their dying. If they want a straightforward death, well and good. If they want help with their death, it is a basic human right.
Okay, yeah, we've got 30 seconds before we go to
I just had a question concerning food and water to Mr. Humphrey. I wanted to know, since we're talking about mercy here, if you felt that starvation or dehydration was a painless form of death, and if not, what other forms of mercy killing would you recommend?
Yes, I think the starvation thing in itself is unkind. I think when there is an all-round decision that to allow the patient to die, I think it's far more humane to help the patient to die. Starvation over days is appalling.
We now at the time, for some reason, begin with you, Mr. Bopp.
I don't think that we can confuse the goodness of a decision maker with the goodness of a decision. And unfortunately, in cases such as this and in other cases, we We either purposefully confuse it or accidentally confuse it. Mr. Humphrey would have us, under sanction of law, confuse what a motive a person might have in committing an act and whether or not that act ought to be legal or not legal. There are people who steal food because their children need food. That motive is not a justification for theft. We need to seek to support people who need help, provide hope where a person is hopeless, shoulder burdens when burdens are being borne, not to terminate and favor death for those who have burdens.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bob. Final summation.
Well, I think, you know, to take that analogy, if a child does steal because it's hungry, yes, the child should be accountable, but the question that the child was starving should be make the sentence extremely light. You neglect to mention this. The whole debate is as though we don't die. And sadly, many deaths today are distressing. We die of degenerative diseases, the ALS, the Alzheimer's. Death these days doesn't come as quick as it used to. It often takes 5–10 years. And a great many intelligent individuals want to say, when the end is coming, if I've lived a good life, I would like to leave with dignity and on my own terms. And I think this is a basic human right that people are increasingly going to ask for. The membership of Euthanasia Society is soaring. The public opinion polls show that 70% of Americans believe in the right to die with the help of a doctor.
Thank you very much. Derek Humphrey, Executive Director of the Hemlock Society, James Bobb Jr., General Counsel for the National Right to Life Committee and member of the President Committee on Mental Retardation, also President of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. Thank both of you, members of the studio audience, Ms. Moran, who comes here and with eloquence and points to a personal involvement in this issue. We thank you for sharing this time with us. Night Watch continues. We hope you'll stay with us.
The very little.
This is what it's like to be functionally illiterate. Unable to read a job application, a street sign, or a bedtime story to a child. There are 27 million Americans like this. 27 million.
And
we could help them, but we need your help. Call the Coalition for Literacy at this number and volunteer. The only degree you need is a degree of caring.
I think I can. I think I can. I think I can.
Breathtaking. There are things that take your breath away. Smoking is one of them. To stop smoking, just take it a step at a time. Quitting is a challenge. An uphill battle. But if you keep on trying, you'll soon discover that your lungs improve, you breathe easier, your smoker's hack disappears, you don't get winded. In fact, once smoking no longer takes your breath away, you come out on top with a whole new view of yourself.
Taking a look at sports, in American League Baseball Sunday, the Toronto Blue Jays powered their way past the Kansas City Royals 10-6. George Bell drove in 4 runs with a 2-run homer and a pair of sacrifice flies, and Willie Upshaw added another homer as the first-place Blue Jays stayed 5 games ahead of the Yankees in the American League East. In New York, Don Mattingly came through with a tie-breaking double in the 7th inning to lift the Yankees to a 4-2 win over the Boston Red Sox. Mattingly's 98 RBIs leads the major leagues. Elsewhere in the league, the White Sox beat the Brewers, the Tigers shut out the Indians, and the A's beat the Angels. The Mariners bombed the Twins, and the Orioles and Rangers were postponed due to rain. In the National League, the Pirates blanked the Mets, the Cubs lost to the Phillies, and the Reds beat the Astros. The Expos nipped the Cardinals in 10 innings, the Giants beat the Dodgers in 10, and the Braves and the Padres split a pair of games out west.
If you have some ideas and you want change, you have a wonderful pulpit as governor to get out there and promulgate that change. Try to convince the legislature. If you can't convince the legislature, try and convince the people to convince the legislature to move in this area or that area, of education, for instance.
The Education Commission of the States. You may never have heard of it, but Republican Tom Kean, up for re-election as governor of New Jersey, wants to turn it into a vehicle for major education reforms. Kean, the new chairman of the commission, is with us this hour.
The audience is the same as they have always been. They laugh, they hate, they smile, they cry. They do exactly the same thing they did thousands of years ago in different ways, though. Yeah. Therefore, when there's something funny, they will laugh.
And Victor Borge is here. He's been making people laugh for generations with his musical antics. At the age of 76, the man called the world's most elegant clown is still entertaining around the globe. Good morning, I'm Sam Ford in Washington. All that beginning in just a few moments, but first, the news. A delegation of church leaders is scheduled to meet with South African President Peter Botha today on possible reforms in that country's racial policies. President Reagan's national security advisor in 4 runs with a 2-run homer and a pair of sacrifice flies, and Willie Upshaw added another homer as the first-place Blue Jays stayed 5 games ahead of the Yankees in the American League East. In New York, Don Mattingly came through with a tie-breaking double in the 7th inning to lift the Yankees to a 4-2 win over the Boston Red Sox. Mattingly's 98 RBIs leads the major leagues. Elsewhere in the league, the White Sox beat the Brewers, the Tigers shut out the Indians, and the A's beat the Angels. The Mariners bombed the Twins, and the Orioles and Rangers were postponed due to rain. In the National League, the Pirates blanked the Mets, the Cubs lost to the Phillies, and the Reds beat the Astros. The Expos nipped the Cardinals in 10 innings, the Giants beat the Dodgers in 10, and the Braves and the Padres split a pair of games out west.
If you have some ideas and you want change, you have a wonderful pulpit as governor to get out there and promulgate that change. Try to convince the legislature. If you can't convince the legislature, try and convince the people to convince the legislature to move in this area or that area, of education, for instance.
The Education Commission of the States. You may never have heard of it, but Republican Tom Kean, up for re-election as governor of New Jersey, wants to turn it into a vehicle for major education reforms. Kean, the new chairman of the commission, is with us this hour.
The audience is the same as they have always been. They laugh, they hate, they smile, they cry. They do exactly the same thing they did thousands of years ago in different ways, though. Yeah. Therefore, when there's something funny, they will laugh.
And Victor Borge is here. He's been making people laugh for generations with his musical antics. At the age of 76, the man called the world's most elegant clown is still entertaining around the globe. Good morning, I'm Sam Ford in Washington. All that beginning in just a few moments, but first, the news. A delegation of church leaders is scheduled to meet with South African President Peter Botha today on possible reforms in that country's racial policies. President Reagan's national security advisor, Robert McFarlane, Sunday urged black leaders to negotiate with whites despite the negative tone last week of Botha's speech on the future of blacks. But South African Bishop Desmond Tutu said Sunday he would not be attending today's meeting. French President François Mitterrand warns that anyone who interferes with French nuclear testing in the South Pacific will be arrested. His threat came as the new flagship of the environmental group Greenpeace left Amsterdam for the test site. The vessel replaces the Rainbow Warrior, which was sunk by a bomb last month in New Zealand. There are new questions today concerning the rescue operation after last Monday's Japanese jet crash. A 12-year-old girl, one of 4 survivors, claims she spoke with her sister and father for a long time before they died. Rescue teams reached the remote mountain site 17 hours after the crash. Doctors conducting autopsies say some of the 520 victims died from shock and loss of blood and may have lived for hours after the impact. The investigation continues into the August 2nd crash of a Delta Airlines jet at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. According to a published report Sunday, a potentially hazardous thunderstorm developed 14 minutes before the accident, enough time for the pilot to take evasive action. Wind shears caused by that severe storm may have led to the tragedy, which killed 134 people. New York and New Jersey will tangle today in federal court. The basis of their battle is the Statue of Liberty and the island she stands on. New Jersey says that land belongs to New Jersey. New York currently lays claim to both Liberty and Ellis Islands. At stake are lucrative tax revenues from tourist dollars.
We haven't enough asked the teacher in the classroom what he thinks or what she thinks of these various movements, which ones are successful, which ones aren't successful, and which ones are going to be helpful to them in the classroom, and that's what we hope to be about this coming year.
If you're an investor, here's an important telephone number from Charles Schwab and an important message.
I worked hard for my money, and I want my money's worth when I buy or sell stocks. That's why I use Charles Schwab, the #1 discount broker. I make my own investment decisions, so I like Schwab's policy of no sales pressure, no advice, and no passing judgment on my buy or sell decisions. I like saving up to 76% on commissions compared to what full commission brokers charge. And I like getting services you wouldn't expect from a discount broker. Fast, accurate transactions, clear monthly statements. I'd say I get more than my money's worth with Charles Schwab.
I'm Charles Schwab. You'll like our low commissions, our convenience, and our quality service. That's a promise.
For a free booklet telling what Schwab Discount Brokerage can do for you, call 800-453-9000 toll-free. That's 800-453-9000. Charles Schwab, a Bank America company. Member SIPC.
If you need life insurance protection, a good chunk of it, but you don't want to keep paying for it forever, look into QuickPay, the different kind of life insurance from Transamerica. With QuickPay, you decide the number of years you want to pay for your coverage. 3, 5, 7, that's it. You're paid up for life. You're protected for life. Let me show you. Say you're like me, 40, don't smoke, and you need $100,000 of protection. And you want your payments to end in 5 years. Look, you pay $1,569 a year, a total of $7,845 in premiums, not a cent more. You have $100,000 in protection from the word go. All along the way, your Transamerica QuickPay policy builds tax-deferred cash value at high current interest rates. And you don't pay even one premium after the first 5 years. QuickPay from Transamerica. Find out about it. Quick.
For complete details about QuickPay, call 800-238-7000 toll-free. That's 800-238-7000. Call now.
Many people are saying something has to be done about improving the standard of American schools. Governor Tom Kean of New Jersey is actively trying to do something about it. He is behind legislation to raise the minimum salary for public school teachers in New Jersey. And he also wants to reward outstanding instructors with cash bonuses. He used to be taking an even more active role now as chairman of the Education Commission of the states. Governor Kean joins us on Nightwatch to talk about education and about your state. I pick up a Boston Globe piece. Here it says, New Jersey, new prosperity and a new image. What's the new image for New Jersey?
Well, we're starting to recognize, I think, in New Jersey, the kind of things that have already been there. We've always been a great state. But somehow we've had too many people outside of the state either making jokes about New Jersey, talking about it in a derogatory, semi-derogatory way, and we just don't accept that anymore.
How did it get started?
The New Jersey jokes?
Yes.
Oh, I think Ben Franklin started it. Benjamin Franklin at one point called New Jersey a keg tapped at both ends. And
between Philadelphia and New York?
That's right. But we now are, you know, everything's, we really are on a roll as a state.
Yeah,
we
sure.
got a lot of new jobs created. We're doing great things in education. We're leading the country in some of the cleanup and environmental matters. And what's happening is that New Jersey people are taking pride in this, taking pride in what's happening, taking pride in their history and their beachfront and so many things, and it's having a very good effect on the state.
Well, when I lived in New York, I used to go to the beaches that are now sung about by Bruce Springsteen, and they're wonderful beaches, you know, along that New Jersey coast from Bay Head and Manahawkin and all that area. You've also got the Meadowlands, and you've got Atlantic City, and it seems to have achieved a lot of attention.
We've got the Meadowlands, we've got Atlantic City, and as you just mentioned, we've got Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen is
all of
also
those
a
are
native
natural
son
assets.
who lives there.
That's right, who lives there and is going to stay there.
And not to speak of John Sayles, the filmmaker who
we got a
did
number
the
of
Bruce Springsteen video.
That's right.
Let's talk about education. What are you trying to do in New Jersey? Because all of us are concerned about the quality of schools and especially the quality of public education, all those issues that we all debate, teacher competency test and teacher bonuses, and whether we are getting the kind of education we ought to be getting, the kind of teaching we ought to be getting, is something on everybody's mind. What ought we be doing, and what are you doing in New Jersey?
Well, I think what we're doing in New Jersey and what we've got to do as a country is raise the bar a bit, raise standards for both students and teachers, make them reach higher, make them be better, and that involves not only rewarding good teachers more in the classroom in terms of salaries and in terms of bonuses, but it also means making sure that the results are measurable. That if our kids aren't getting the kind of education, and we find that out through test scores, going into the classroom and making changes, finding out different approaches, different ways, so that, frankly, our children are going to be able to compete in this world.
You say something very interesting, having read a little bit about you. It is that we ought to utilize the teachers more to find out what's going on in the classroom. So much of the conversation is, are teachers good or bad? And what do we do? And how do we test them? And how do we somehow measure whether teachers are meeting the standards we ought to? And you're saying maybe we ought to listen to the teachers for a while and find out what they say and think.
I think that is so very important because there's an extraordinary ferment of education going on right now. There's very few states where governors and legislators and people aren't coming up with new ideas and new reforms, and all that is healthy, except that we've somehow left out the teacher. We haven't enough asked the teacher in the classroom what he thinks or what she thinks of these various movements, which ones are successful, which ones aren't successful, and which ones are going to be helpful to them in the classroom, and that's what we hope to be about this coming year.
How do you do that?
Well, we're setting up a series of panels, some in New Jersey, but some elsewhere, through the Education Commission of the States, which I'm going to chair in the coming year, and we're going to set up panels of teachers in which we're going to use as screening and sounding boards to try and evaluate some of these policies that we have now for improvement of the schools, for trying to get more information into our children's heads and find out from the teachers whether or not we're going in the right direction, what they think, what changes they think should be made, and we got a second step to this. Not only are we going to have the teachers evaluated, but there is a very small cadre of very good education writers, and we're trying to get a lot of them also to form another panel to evaluate from their point of view, from the scholars' point of view, what's going on. And then we're going to be able to take this and let all the governors, legislators, education officials around the country know from that point of view what people think works and what people think doesn't work.
Interesting, this is, the ECS is a group of states working together. What's the role of the federal government in public education today?
Federal government's got very little role. What's exciting is happening in the states, and that's why I think it's the prime responsibility of governors. I don't think we have a higher duty than the education of our children, because the federal government's role is going to be very limited in the schools. We need research, and every bit of research on good education that the federal government can supply will take. We need funds for those unusual students who have trouble learning because they have a particular problem. We need some special funds for those special students. But apart from that, we want the federal government really to let us alone to be creative in the states. We will do our job.
Does that put you at one with the philosophy of the Reagan administration with respect to education?
In that way, yes. Although I might argue with them as They would take it even further out. They
Sure.
would probably not have the research that I've asked for, and they would probably not have the funds for the hard-to-teach kids. I think we have to have that, whether these kids are deprived kids in cities or whether they're kids who have some learning disability. We need help with those kids from the federal government.
As you make these initiatives, in New Jersey, the legislature has passed increased salary, have you not?
Not yet, but we hope to. We hope that'll be done very shortly.
But you want to tie, aren't you threatening to veto it unless they tie it in with incentive pay and bonus pay?
Yeah, what we want is two things, really. The minimum salary, which is $18,500 in the case of our proposal, and the idea of the minimum salary is not only to help teachers at the bottom of the salary ladder, but to lure good people back into the profession. We, unfortunately, are getting too many people coming into the teaching profession who are from the bottom of the quarter of the class instead of the top quarter of the class.
Because they're not paying them enough.
That's one area. Yeah. That's one area. There are other reasons for this, but that's one area. So this minimum salary is very, very important. At the same time as which we're changing the minimum salary to lure good teachers into the classroom, the other thing we have to do is keep the great teachers in the classroom, the kind of teachers that you remember and I remember who...
The people who molded our life.
Made a difference. Yes. Made a difference. So all of us can think of one or two or three teachers without whom we might not have survived.
But tie that in with the bonus idea.
Yeah, well the idea is to recognize, my suggestion now is through a bonus, those great teachers, recognize them in the community, give them money to spend either in their classroom or spend, if they want to, in their own pockets, but recognize them.
And you're running into trouble with the teachers' unions about this?
Yeah, they have some very serious problems, and I understand them, as to whether this is going to be done fairly. But what we've suggested...
And who chooses?
Who chooses, that's right. That's what their big concern is. And so we've suggested a panel really of three groups. The first group being the teachers themselves, second group being school boards and administrators, and third being the community, the parent-teachers associations.
How about the students?
What? Well, the teachers are very nervous about that.
Governor Kane of New Jersey. Nightwatch continues. Stay with us.
Do you care for romantic music? I hope you do. You do? Yeah. Here's some.
No one thought I'd get this far, but look how far I've come. I know I still have things to learn and fears to overcome, but I'm standing on my own 2 feet and working for my pay. No one thought I'd get this far, but I'm going all the way. There were those who sold me short and those who thought me slow, but I'm stronger every day, and every day I grow. And now I'm living on my own, and all I want to say is no one thought I'd get this far, but I'm going all the way.
Thanks. Jack, I didn't know you had a hearing problem.
Problem was, I didn't know myself. You remember when I was having trouble understanding things? Actually, I was missing parts of conversations. I just couldn't hear everything. Well, now with a hearing aid.
Customers love him. Jack is one of nearly 20 million Americans with a hearing problem. Most can be helped, medically, surgically, through rehabilitation, or with hearing aids. For more information, call toll-free Hearing Helpline, 800-424-8576, or write Hearing, Box 1840, Washington, D.C., 20013. That's Hearing, Box 1840, Washington, D.C., 20013.
You should hear what you're missing.
New studies show that pot damages your lungs a lot more than you think, especially if you're still growing.
You can't fly if you're high.
The American Lung Association.
Governor Tom Kane, Republican governor of New Jersey. You won by what, about 1,800 votes?
That's right.
It doesn't make any difference now, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. Once you're governor, people look at your performance.
Have you enjoyed being governor?
Governor, aside from perhaps the time I had teaching in school, is the most enjoyable job I've ever had. Those two jobs have just been tremendously fulfilling.
Any comparisons between the two? Does the governor's role become, in part, a kind of pulpit or a kind of podium?
That's the best thing about the governor's role and the most productive thing about the governor's role. Teddy Roosevelt has called it a bully pulpit.
Sure.
And it is, because if you have some ideas and you want change, you have a wonderful pulpit as governor to get out there and promulgate that change. Try to convince the legislature. If you can't convince the legislature, try and convince the people to convince the legislature to move in this area or that area, or education, for instance, the one we're talking about.
Do you think it's more satisfying than being a legislator?
I think so, because and more satisfying than being a United States Congressman, because you're not just one of a whole bunch of people. You can make a difference. I mean, you can work for one program in Congress for sometimes 10 years, and then you get your one bill through and you have your moment of satisfaction if the president signs it.
Yeah.
As governor, you can issue an executive order, and that thing happens tomorrow. That's the difference, and you have that kind of responsibility, but that kind of ability to really make a difference in people's lives. You can look at things you have done as governor that really people are better off because of what you've done, and it gives you a great feeling of satisfaction.
What's been the biggest disappointment for you?
Oh, I think that there are a couple of things I've been trying to do that I hope I'll be able to accomplish in the future, just simply because you seem to run into special interest groups that, although the public as a whole is behind you, they'll block you in a legislature. And
How do they do it? Because of their influence over legislators, in a sense of the whole business of money and politics.
That's right. It's often money.
Funding.
Sometimes it's simply votes or support. I mean, you can have you have a situation, for instance, we've been trying to get civil service reform, which will make more efficient government and hopefully less expensive government. And one small union really has been blocking that. Even though every time you interview the public, you find, sure, that's a great thing. I've had my 5 predecessors, governors, Republicans and Democrats, endorse it. All the editorials are for it, and yet I can't get it moving through the legislature. And there are a few other examples that I could give you like that, where there are programs that the people are all for, and yet there is one interest that's able to block it.
Whether it's a corporate
process.
or a union or some other special interest.
That's right. It's a special interest. One thing we've moving too far toward in this country, and at the federal level even more than on the state level, sort of special interest politics. Where
do you find politics becoming more divisive?
I don't think it's as becoming, it's not as divisive in the states, I don't think, as it's become in one sense in Washington. I detect sort of an era, we had an era of good feelings, there's some era of ill feelings, which is very destructive of the political process, because I find if I can't argue on principle about what I think is right, for instance, with people in the other party today, go out that night and have dinner with them, and tomorrow try to reach a compromise where we're going to be working together on some common goals, then the process doesn't work.
Where do you think it came from? I sense that, too, in listening to people who come to this broadcast, especially on the Hill, in terms of members of the same party arguing with a certain piousness and a holier-than-thou attitude.
That's right.
About their own positions. And rather than reasonable men and women can disagree, it's like, if you don't understand what I am trying to do, then you somehow un-American or un-Christian or un-religious or something.
And that's an attitude that we have got to change in this country. That is the most destructive thing for good overall government. If you don't respect the motives and respect the abilities of somebody you have to work with day in, day out, whether it's conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, what have you, then you can't get it accomplished. And then you have the kind of Congress, frankly, that you have right now, where there's so many things out there that are not being done, that we all know. You know, we know you have to do something about the debt. Congress can't seem to do it. Everybody knows there's got to be a super fund. It's not going to be reauthorized on time. I mean, there's so many things out there.
We just had Lee Thomas here yesterday talking about that.
Yeah, they just don't seem to be able to act, and it's because of the kind of attitude you just say, and you just said. And part of that, perhaps, is campaigns, perhaps it's the era of negative politics in the districts. I don't know what it is, but it's very, very destructive to our government at the moment and very destructive to our political system.
What do you hear the people of New Jersey saying to you on different issues? Or the deficit, if you listen to politicians in Washington who go home to their districts, is that the people are more and more talking about deficits, and they're saying to the politicians, deal with the deficit, because they've begun to understand it. That's right. Because they may be mortgaging their kids' future, and that makes a difference to them, and they understand that somehow in their own family life the bills come due, and if you don't pay them at some point, the banker or the credit company says, you know, enough is enough. More so than tax reform. It is the crucial cutting-edge issue.
I think that's true, and I think one of the things people in Washington don't recognize, and people perhaps in politics don't recognize often enough, is that the people are often way ahead of them. Yeah. That people do understand these issues. And when politicians refuse to deal with them through worry about the next election or cowardice or what have you, that people recognize that. And people can see it, and they see it right now in the United States Congress. I mean, we as governors, the frustration at the last Governors Association meeting was incredible, because governors every day have to balance a budget. And to do that, they often have to make cuts in services. Sometimes they have to raise revenues. I mean, but you have to balance it.
And people can see you on the street to tell you how they feel about it, too.
That's right, and not everybody agrees with what we do. Some people disagree with what we do, but they recognize we've made the hard decision. And then we go on, and the frustration at the National Governors Association this year with the lack of action and the lack of concern almost in the United States Congress about doing something about this deficit and their responsibility was really very, very strong.
Governor, thank you for joining us on Nightwatch. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Nice to see you.
We look forward to coming to New Jersey. Nightwatch continues. Stay with us.
Crazy glue, strong enough to hold this man suspended in midair. Bonds almost anything.
A plastic knob, a plastic plug, a rubber boot, a metal brooch, a fishing rod, a cycle grip, model planes and model trains, a doorknob screw, a flashlight case, the broken trim on any car.
And Crazy Glue also comes in this pen. Just press to apply. No drip, no clog. Crazy Glue works like crazy. Tube or pen. Get some today.
The country's gone crazy.
Crazy Glue in tube or pen.
Crazy Glue.
Just finished my first day at a great new job. You know where I found it? Here, in the National Business Employment Weekly. Every issue tells you about the best jobs available. Managerial, professional, technical. At top companies across the country. Top salaries from $25,000 a year to $250,000. Every issue has articles to help you land the job that's right for you. Writing a better resume. Coming across strong in interviews. Marketing yourself. Then when you get the job you want, articles that help you manage your career. Like setting career goals, salary statistics, how to ask for a raise and get it. The National Business Employment Weekly helps you get a great job, helps you do a great job. Don't make a career move without it.
Ask for the National Business Employment Weekly at your newsstand, or if you prefer, get the next 8 issues by first-class mail for $32. Call toll-free 800-228-6266. 8 weekly issues, $32. Call 800-228-6266 now.
What's this, a rocket?
No, it's Aquafresh in a see-through pump.
But we need something to fight plaque.
Look, new clinical evidence proves Aquafresh helps remove plaque, which can cause gingivitis. And gingivitis means red, swollen, tender gums. Fights cavities with fluoride, freshens breath, helps remove plaque in one complete toothpaste.
The best pump fights plaque, too.
Triple Protection Aquafresh, proven more complete than ever.
Later this week on Nightwatch, Jennifer Beals joins us from Los Angeles to talk about her first movie since Flashdance, The Bride, as in the wife of Frankenstein.
We're planning as soon as the
Congressman William Gray contends the federal budget is full of phony cuts. The House Budget Committee chairman will be here.
Anti-Apartheid Act, which I was the author of in the House.
And Carly Simon. Her new album, Spoiled Girl, is being called a 1980s breakthrough.
Dan Riley, and I'm here to talk to you about fitness. Today's topic is the neck. Not really the neck, but the muscles of the neck. It's an area of the body that's widely ignored by many, especially the athlete. Why exercise the muscles of the neck? The cosmetic benefits involved with exercising the neck muscles can be appreciated by many. The firming and toning effect of exercising these muscles. This also delays the aging process of this area of the body atrophying, the muscles growing smaller and weaker. And finally, for the adult, the benefits of helping to minimize and possibly eliminate the stress that develops in the neck and head region. So by exercising the neck muscles, it might replace that six-pack when you come home from work. This is John Dunn, an assistant with the Redskins, and we're now going to demonstrate how to properly perform and spot the exercises you can do at home with just a bench or even laying off the edge of a cot or a bed to strengthen the muscles. The area of the body that will work now is the front of the neck or the neck flexors. To perform the exercise, get into a position where the back of the head might be touching the back of your mattress, and this will help protect you because this is the position where you risk being hurt. This is the starting position. The spotter, I'll place my hand across the forehead with the thumb in the bridge of the nose. Make sure that the resistance you apply is smooth and even, both coming up and down. Here's the exercise. John will pull his chin to the chest and pause momentarily, holding that position. We'll allow at least 4 seconds to recover to the starting position, the starting stretch position. The amount of resistance you add will dictate how intense the exercise is. The more intense, the more productive the exercise. If it's an inconsistent spot, the resistance that you're applying is too much or too little, it'll be a jerky motion, and that's incorrect and dangerous. We recommend 1 set of 12 repetitions. The next exercise will be for the muscles on the back side of the neck extensors. These are the muscles that extend the head. In the starting position, the lifter is in a stretched position, and the lifter risks being hurt here, so be somewhat cautious. Apply a mild stretch. The spotter places the hand in the middle of the back of the head. The lifter will then perform the exercise in a very smooth, controlled manner, extend the head all the way back, pause in that contracted position, allow at least 4 seconds to recover to that starting stretched position. Okay, the next exercise, perform without any equipment, and we recommend that you perform this by yourself because this is somewhat difficult to spot and perform. This is self-imposed lateral flexion. Now, John's working the left side of the neck right now, the lateral flexors on the neck. Notice he's keeping his shoulders parallel. He's going through the full range of motion, coming all the way side to side. Now, this will strengthen, develop the muscles on the left side. We mirror that to strengthen the muscles on the right side. Simply place the right hand on the right side of the head. Same rules, keep the shoulders level. Don't rotate the head from side to side. We don't want the head doing this, just directly from one side to the other. The last exercise that we'll show you is a shrug. The shrug is an exercise to develop the traps or the trapezius, which is a big muscle on the back of the neck and inserts or attaches in the base of the skull. You'll need some kind of equipment to perform this exercise. This ties in with the neck. This is a neck exercise. This is a shoulder shrug. To perform the exercise, elevate the shoulders as high as you can, pause in that position momentarily, and then emphasize a good 3 to 4 seconds to recover to the starting position and stretch. Note that when John raises the weight, the shoulders come as high as they can. We pause, emphasize the lowering phase, reach the stretch position. A couple don'ts. A lot of people will just jerk the weight up and down. You don't want to do that. There is no need to roll the shoulders. That won't enhance the exercise. And the last incorrect method, note that we're bending the arms here. That's the biceps. The weight's too heavy. The neck is the most important part of the body. Don't ignore it. We'd recommend that you get a head with strong neck.
Dan Riley, the fitness coach for the Washington Redskins, a regular on Night Train with advice on health and body conditioning. Good morning, I'm Sam Ford, and this is Night Watch. In the news, Bishop Desmond Tutu will not be among the South African church leaders meeting today with President Peter Botha. Tutu said he wants a one-on-one session to thrash out the problems of apartheid. On Sunday, Tutu warned that without reform, South Africa is on the brink of catastrophe. Some 635 people, most of them black, have been killed in nearly a year of racial unrest. President Reagan is monitoring the South Africa situation while on vacation at his California ranch. The administration is urging Pretoria to offer specific apartheid reforms. At the same time, it believes black leaders in South Africa should accept the government's offer to negotiate. Pope John Paul ends his 7-nation African tour today on a historic note. His arrival in Morocco marks the first official visit to a Muslim country by a reigning pope. In Kenya Sunday, the pontiff condemned what he termed the evil of apartheid. He also renewed his appeal for aid to famine-racked Africa, asking nations to spend more for food and less for weapons. A report Sunday in 2 British newspapers has been confirmed. A helicopter carrying Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher narrowly avoided colliding with a jetliner 3 weeks ago. The plane had to abort its takeoff from Heathrow Airport when the helicopter flew over the runway. As said one aviation expert, we were on the brink of a major disaster. What was left of Hurricane Danny caused flooding Sunday in parts of Virginia and North Carolina. Stewart, Virginia was declared a disaster area after 10 inches of rain caused major damage. The system also spawned tornadoes on Saturday. 35 people were injured near Spartanburg, South Carolina, when 3 twisters hit trailer parks. Victor Borge was a child prodigy in Denmark, performed biting anti-Hitler satire before World War II, and has been entertaining around the world for more than 40 years. Charlie Rose talks with the musician-comedian known as the Great Dane.
He's hailed as the madcap master of music and mirth. Victor Borge, the Great Dane, has been delighting audiences for 4 decades. His concerts are filled with jokes and pranks that make the most serious music lover chuckle. But he's also an accomplished pianist who's performed from opera houses around the world to the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue. Victor Borge joins us now on Night Watch. It's a delight to have you here.
And I'm delighted to
After
be here.
being a fan for many, 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 many years.
Good.
What does music mean to you?
What does the language mean to a poet?
It is everything.
It is everything. It is a thing you can express yourself, you can enjoy, you can hate it, you can misspell it, you can create with it, you can do anything with it, if you master it to a certain degree, of course.
Do you think music all the time? I mean, do you hear music every moment of your day, almost?
Not necessarily, but everything can be transformed into music. That's why we use music in operas, for instance. Just like humor. Humor is the greatest weapon for the humorist. Humor is for the humorist what a pen is for the poet or the composer, or the brush is for the painter.
Yeah. Do you have to grow up with music the way you did? I mean, your mother was a piano teacher, your father was a musician, violinist or?
Yes, he played the violin.
Violinist in
As a matter of fact, he played in the Royal Philharmonic, he played the viola. A lot of people don't know the difference between a viola and a violin. And my father was one of them. But anyway...
do you have to grow up in it that way to have this great love that you have, to feel music the way you do?
What do you have to know or to do in order to enjoy the countryside, to enjoy beauty?
To have seen it.
You must know about it. You must enjoy it. It must tell you something. Music, it doesn't... You can't... well, I'm lost right now because I can't remember why we got into this.
Well, I got into it because to see you and the delight that music brings to you and to know what it has meant. You're 76 years old now.
Yeah.
You had your first performance when you were 8 at the conservatory, right?
No, that was a concert.
A concert?
Yes.
At 8?
At 8.
So
I was a few minutes after 8.
You have loved music for all of your life?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. How would you characterize what you do today?
Well, the best way of doing it is if you come to see my show, because that's why I'm doing it.
Let's take a look.
And then you will understand what.
Here it is, Victor Borge.
Could you put a foot on one of those things there, please?
No, the closest one, the one the closest to you. Now press down, like this.
You still smile at it, don't you?
I think it is very funny.
I do eat too.
And most people really, you ask about music, what it means to me. A lot of people do not know how important it is, for instance, page turning. Every musician, anybody who has any idea about music or has ever played, know when the page has to be turned. And if it is turned too soon or too late, it can be catastrophic.
Yeah. That's why they say serious musicians love you. Serious being symphonic members of the symphonic. They love you because you make fun of things that they know are part of this sort of
the things that they have experienced themselves, but they don't laugh at it when it happens.
No.
But afterwards.
It's disaster when it happens.
It's disaster. Somebody telling you how they broke their leg, they can laugh at it 2 years later when they tell you the story. But it was not so funny when it happened.
How did it all start?
What?
Combining humor and music.
Oh, I don't know how it started. All I know is that it was always there.
But you didn't set out one day and say that I know that the audience would love to see me come out and be funny and play music at the same time.
Exactly. That's why I can't say when it started.
It just
because
happened.
had I known that, then I could have told you when it started. I think it began when I was born, and it is the genes, you know, a sense of humor, a sense of ability to reflect what I see and combine it with what I know.
Do you have some sense of responsibility to an audience to make, you know, to bring them to good music? Do you feel that?
That is a good question, and actually, I would prefer to do more what is called serious playing, but I'm playing for a general audience, and I do not play for people who should be bored. And it is very easy to bore people who are not musically inclined by playing too much. Whereas I also have to satisfy the ones who do want more and who understand and who would care for it. So that I must split it up so that evenly it is acceptable to the audience, to the full audience. If you have, which I have at times, we had a couple of weeks ago in Philadelphia with the Philadelphia Orchestra, we had 24,000 people in the audience. And there are other times when I have 400 or 30,000 or whatever, any number. You must realize that each one is there to be entertained. And I am responsible for that. And I cannot do just what I like to do. I have to do what they want me to do and what I like to do for them so that they can enjoy it.
Victor Porca, back in a moment. Stay with us. Night Watch continues.
Tuesday, this mild-mannered dentist and this undercover agent are about to become in-laws. But a funny thing happened on the way to the wedding.
Honduras? I think you'll find it quite fascinating.
Peter Falk and Alan Arkin in a hysterical look at relative insanity, The In-Laws.
Just get out of my life!
Then, where on earth is West 57? For these four reporters, it's anywhere a good story takes them. West 57, right after The In-Laws, Tuesday. Wednesday.
I handled all three of your divorces.
Jackson is on the case when an unknown killer stalks an old friend.
It's a bomb.
But he may be in the way.
Are you sure it's a bomb?
I Had Three Wives. Then glamorous high-wire beauties, perilous feats of magic, superb comic wizardry, and more. It's non-stop excitement as celebrity ringmasters welcome dozens of stars for an incredible display of showmanship and fun. The 9th annual Circus of the Stars after I Had Three Wives, Wednesday. Thursday, Magnum's career depends on a marital case of murder.
I just found out this guy killed his first wife.
Then on Simon and Simon.
It's a fellow with a gun, AJ. Thank you, Rick.
Rick and AJ get caught in a murderous mob takeover. And their 7 very special friends, Jane, Joey, Christopher, Barbara, Ben, Mary, and Peter. You know who they are. Now get ready to meet them for the very first time when Hometown premieres Thursday.
We've got the touch on CBS.
We didn't do it.
Framed for murder.
132 years.
Life in prison.
They made me clean the electric chair.
A daring escape. And the smash hit movie Stir Crazy becomes a hilarious new series on CBS. Now our heroes are on the run, chased by every cop on wheels, and using every trick in the book to stay free men.
I'm having a terrific time.
Coming soon, Stir Crazy, the series.
Did you at one time want to be a conductor?
At all times, since I was a child. But my father was playing in the opera for many years. And that excited me very much. I went to rehearsals and things. And, the opera contains all facets of art. Music, poetry,
acting,
design, acting,
scenes,
anything that is within art. And I have experienced so many facets of it myself. On the stage. Alone for many years, I have performed thousands of times, and I have performed with other people. I have done movies, I have done television. So I know fairly well the stage, the function of the stage, the function of the person on the stage. I have held audiences alone. I have played for 95,000 people in a full evening performance, 110,000. I have played, one night we played for 2 people. That was in Kansas City many years ago. It was a terrible snowstorm. Nobody could get in or out.
Did you do a whole concert?
Well, I invited them up on the bench. We sat on the piano bench. We had a marvelous time.
Good for you.
And yeah. So I know fairly well how to handle audiences. Yeah. And I do alone easily 2.5, 3 hours.
But do any regrets that you didn't simply become the conductor? Because there are people who say you are very good. I mean, you conduct some of the great symphonies in the world, whether it's Cleveland, yes, Philadelphia, around the world.
Yes, Washington,
New York, National Symphony. Yes. Do you regret not simply concentrating on being a great conductor?
I do not regret anything because I do not know what would have happened.
Yeah.
All I know is what has happened.
It's been terrific.
And I have been immensely fortunate. I have lived through 2 world wars, the Holocaust, and I am still alive and functioning.
People don't realize, and I didn't until I read about you, that you were a film star as well as a stage star in Europe before Hitler came to power.
Yes.
Or after he came to power, before the war began. And you used to satirize him.
Well,
it got you in trouble.
Well, it was political jokes and political satire, like everybody else did, one way or the other.
But you were on the most wanted list in Copenhagen.
I don't know why they wanted me, but
because you said things.
It was always good to be wanted, and particularly it was almost an honor to be wanted by the Nazis.
So you fled. You on the last boat out.
I was in Sweden when the invasion occurred.
Yeah.
And from there I went through a lot of facets, and I came to the United States in 1940 through Finland, the northern part of Finland. What's the name of the town? I'll get that when the show is over.
All right. Let me talk about after.
Petsamo. I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
You seem to be so vigorous and so healthy. And
well,
does music and laughter make one young?
I don't know. It apparently makes me young.
It certainly does.
I don't know what it does to other people. But the only time I realize, as you say, that I'm 76 is when I look in the mirror. And then I come to think of my mother. She would have died laughing if she saw me now.
Why?
Well, because she never expected me to look like
this
this.
little baby who turns out to be...
Exactly.
Yeah. You also said that music and humor are much more serious than seriousness itself.
Seriousness itself is easily accomplished. All you have to do is being serious, but try to be funny.
I think that would be the toughest thing in the world.
It is very difficult.
Walk out there on the stage and they are saying, make me laugh.
Yeah. But you have your means with which to do it. The piano has strings with which you can make music. but you must be able to create it. Whereas seriousness, you are born serious. It's a very serious matter to be born. And every situation has a musical, a grant of musical, of humorous, some kind of, even we used to in what you call it, musical reviews,
yes,
vaudeville, to have two men sitting on a bench at the cemetery, talking about who is in the two men sitting there, sitting, and there's a funeral passing by, and one says, who died? And the other one said, the guy in the first car. You know, this is not a very good joke, but you are laughing if you're talking about death.
Yes.
You know, and as I usually say when I talk about the difficulties with language, which is the same as difficulties with music, because music and language are so closely knitted. Yeah. I would say that out of 100 letters I receive, 92 are not saying exactly what the person wants to say. For instance, a lady who said that she was a widow and she had seen my show. My show, I was very much impressed by it. I had enjoyed it very much, and she hadn't laughed so heartily since her husband died. Now, did she laugh when her husband died? Or, so when you read these things, and that is the same with music. You make a mistake, you don't play it correctly. And that can be very funny.
And you have certainly made it funny for audiences around the world, as well as doing a lot in a humanitarian way, thanks to Scandinavia and other projects of yours. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining.
Well, I'm delighted to be here.
Victor Borgo will be at Kennedy Center. Nightwatch continues. Stay with us.
If you haven't seen Business Week lately, you haven't seen Business Week. Now it's as entertaining as it is informative. Every week, Business Week covers a greater variety of subjects important to business. And Business Week uncovers them too, with writing that's both clear and compelling, and pictures that also tell the story. One look at the table of contents and you'll know what Business Week is all about. Then you can go right where you need to be to find out what's up, what's in, and what may be around the corner. In Business Week, you'll meet the top dogs, the big guns, and some heavy hitters who also have an impact on business. Business Week illustrates what's going on in business and interprets what it all means. So now you can get all the news, all the excitement, all the drama. And as always, you can be sure to get the point. All you need is Business Week. Business has never looked better in Business Week. And if you subscribe right now, you can take advantage of a very attractive offer. 32 issues for the low basic rate of only $24.95. That's just 78 cents an issue, a savings of more than 60% off the $2 cover price. And along with your paid subscription, Business Week will send you one more valuable business tool, the Business Week Solar Calculator, free. This desktop calculator is powered by any light source. There are no batteries required, nothing to plug in. And remember, it's free with your paid subscription to Business Week. Here's how to subscribe.
To get Business Week and the Solar Calculator, call 1-800-648-5000. 32 issues, only $24.95. This low basic rate saves you more than $39 off the cover price. The calculator is free with your paid subscription. That number again is 1-800-648-5000. Call now.
During the next 2 weeks, we're going to be giving you a chance to appear on Nightwatch. If you think the news media is treating your group or cause unfairly, or if it's just not giving it any coverage at all, then we invite you to write to us. We'll give you the address in a little bit later and get your pencil ready in order to take it down. But right now, joining us this morning on this series called Voices is Stephen Metzger of New York City. He thinks the media is too negative in its coverage of divorced fathers. Steve, on the 1st of October, a new federal law is going to go into effect, which will require all of the states to crack down on fathers who don't pay their child support, if necessary, having it taken out of their pay.
That's correct.
Now, in your judgment, what's wrong with that, and what's wrong with the media coverage of that?
Well, what's wrong with it is that, in some sense, it is a reform in the sense that you're getting uniform enforcement. The problem is that what it is enforcing is so non-uniform and so variable from every judicial district in every county in the State of the Union that, in effect, we're just, the reform is totally missing the point, in my view.
What's the point?
Well, the point is, first, reform divorce proceedings per se. Then, when you start getting some more justice involved in, particularly as regards fathers and divorced fathers, then start worrying about what to do about child
support payments.
Child support payments, right.
What's wrong with the system in its treatment of divorced fathers?
Well, very simply put, in all custody proceedings, women or mothers are favored by about 90%. And 9% of all cases throughout the nation, women retain custody of the children. And moreover, the father is basically an outcast at that point. And I can speak from my own personal experience in that. That's the critical thing, is a discriminatory thing that is a willful and very consistent aspect of public policy.
Now, this new law may compound that, because as I understand it, a father's pay can be docked to pay for his support, even if the mother's not letting him see those children.
That's correct. It is certainly not balanced in the sense that it does not address the issue of visitation, which there are many, many violations. It's a well-known aspect of the post-divorce situation.
Now, why do you think, in your judgment, the women have the top hand here?
Why?
Why?
I think as a society, we are extremely protective of women to begin with, and we are particularly protective of mothers. And just why that is, I don't know. It's deeply ingrained in our culture, that's for sure.
Well, now that's reflected in the judicial decisions, you think. Now the media. Why would the media is mostly male, or to a large extent male?
Well, actually, most of the judges in these cases are also male. I mean, being male means nothing at all. In fact, you have this aspect of male chauvinism coming forth consistently to protect women in their supposed plight.
Why do you think this point of view, in your judgment, hasn't gotten a fair shake in the media?
Well, it's been, it's largely the plight of divorced fathers has been here for at least 3 decades. It's just largely been ignored by the media, and when it's been treated by the media, the divorced father is typically viewed in the context of having abandoned his children. None of the psychological or agonizing emotional experience that he's been through has, except for in one exception, I can think of a 2020 program that covered that very well.
That's another network, ABC.
That's another network. However, it's probably one of the exceptions in all news coverage.
Does feminism somehow have more clout? What's going on here that feminism...
Feminism definitely has made its mark. I mean, certainly the lobbyists for the feminist movement have done an extremely effective job. What is ironic about this is this particular aspect of the so-called reform probably hurts as many women as it helps them.
Now, we just have a minute. I'm the devil's advocate now. Now, half of the men don't pay their child support. Right. How do you answer that?
Well, what's the question?
Well,
I mean,
why shouldn't there be tough laws?
There should be, but you can't. You have to look at the underlying causes of why there is such a widespread neglect of this so-called duty.
Why?
I think because they are no longer consider themselves fathers in the true sense of the word. They have lost their fatherhood.
And secondly, you support joint custody.
Yes,
but in many cases, those two former spouses are at such odds they couldn't do anything jointly.
Well, that remains to be seen. You have to set up a mediation system prior to a divorce settlement, and then have a post-divorce mediation process that supports joint custody. You can't just, throw it out there and say, come on, folks, get together.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger, for joining us on Voices. If you have a concern that you'd like to air on our broadcast, write us at this address: Voices, CBS News, Nightwatch, 2020 M Street Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20036.
Tuesday, this mild-mannered dentist and this undercover agent are about to become in-laws. But a funny thing happened on the way to the wedding.
Honduras? I think you'll find it quite fascinating.
Peter Falk and Alan Arkin in a hysterical look at relative insanity, The In-Laws.
Just get out of my life!
Then, Where on Earth is West 57th? For these 4 reporters, it's anywhere a good story takes them. West 57th, right after The In-Laws, Tuesday. Wednesday.
I handled all 3 of your divorces.
Jackson is on the case when an unknown killer stalks an old friend.
It's a bomb.
But he may be in the way.
Are you sure it's a bomb?
I Had 3 Wives. Then glamorous high-wire beauties, perilous feats of magic, superb comic wizardry, and more. It's non-stop excitement as celebrity ringmasters welcome dozens of stars for an incredible display of showmanship and fun. The 9th annual Circus of the Stars after I Had 3 Wives, Wednesday. Thursday, Magnum's career depends on a marital case of murder.
I just found out this guy killed his first wife.
Then on Simon and Simon.
It's a fellow with a gun, AJ.
Thank you, Rick.
Rick and AJ get caught in a murderous mob takeover. And their 7 very special friends, Jane, Joey, Christopher, Barbara, Ben, Mary, and Peter. You know who they are. Now get ready to meet them for the very first time when Hometown premieres Thursday.
We've got the touch on CBS.
We didn't do it!
Framed for murder.
132 years.
Life in prison.
They made me clean the electric chair.
A daring escape. And the smash hit movie Stir Crazy becomes a hilarious new series on CBS. Now our heroes are on the run, chased by every cop on wheels, and using every trick in the book to stay free men.
I'm having a terrific time!
Coming soon, Stir Crazy, the series.
And now for some people and places making the news. They won the competition not point by point, but piece by piece. 2 sisters from Columbus, Ohio, and a Memphis, Tennessee woman all defended their title Sunday in the National Jigsaw Puzzle Championships. The doubles winners assembled a 1,000-piece Statue of Liberty puzzle in a record time of 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 13 seconds. If you've never seen a movie Star, an auctioneering company is at least offering the chance to get close to a movie car. Thousands of collectors and nostalgia buffs began bidding in Los Angeles Sunday on 200 cars and other television and film props. Among them, a 1924 truck driven by Henry Fonda in The Grapes of Wrath, and the 1925 Pierce Arrow Roadster used by Marilyn Monroe in Some Like It Hot. Bruce Springsteen drew blood in a small hospital in his home state of New Jersey, a total of 600 pints, and it was all for a good cause. A spokesman at the Riverview Hospital in Red Bank said Sunday that's 10 times the usual amount. The incentive for all the volunteer bloodletting was a chance to win 2 tickets to one of Springsteen's concerts. Rockabilly blues, Latin sounds, saxophone, guitar, and synthesizer, all in the name of jazz. More than 7,000 fans gathered at the birthplace of the American Jazz Festival Sunday for the final day of the 1985 Newport, Rhode Island Jazz Fest. The big news this year, fusion groups, a blend of the old jazz sound and the new rock technology. But whatever the differences in sound, the attitude appeared to be universal. Cool, of course.
'73-year-old Emily Gilbert was suffering from Alzheimer's disease and osteoporosis. Her husband of 51 years shot her to death. Their daughter called it the ultimate act of love. Roswell Gilbert was convicted of murder. 3-year-old Joey Griffith was irreversibly brain dead. Her father ended her life with 2 bullets. He's been charged with first-degree murder. Good morning, I'm Charlie Rose in Washington. Welcome to the CBS News Nightwatch. This morning, a night match debate on mercy killing. Here's our resolution. Resolved, mercy killing is the ultimate act of kindness, relieving the pain of the terminally ill. The law should allow for a mercy defense. Arguing in favor of the resolution, Derek Humphrey, Executive Director of the Hemlock Society.
In these times when we are seeing so many dangerous side effects of modern medical technology, it ought to be everyone's right to get help with their dying from their doctor. As to mercy killers, the law should be changed to permit a plea of mercy and compassion in their defense.
Arguing against the resolution, James Bopp, General Counsel of the National Right to Life Committee.
Mercy killing favors